Attorney General Holder, Secretary Shinseki, distinguished judges and attorneys, and honored guests, good afternoon. My name is Paul Mahoney, and I'm the Dean of the Law School. I'm pleased to welcome you to the University of Virginia School of Law, and delighted that our graduate, Tim Heaphy, has chosen to return to his alma mater to mark his installation as U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Virginia. This is a wonderful day for Tim and for the law school. We are deeply honored that the Attorney General, himself a former U.S. Attorney, has chosen to join us for this happy event, and also honored that so many judges from the Western District have come to be with us as well. And we are, of course, proud to claim Tim Heaphy as a member of the law school community. Tim is a 1991 graduate of the law school and a 1986 graduate of the University of Virginia, where, among other things, he prepared for life as a prosecutor by playing football. Like so many of our graduates, Tim has remained active in the life of the law school. He has taught courses in trial advocacy and federal criminal practice here. Recently, he addressed our first-year students in a session on career planning and made a passionate appeal to the students to consider public service. Tim's own career, of course, has embodied that very commitment. His appointment as U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Virginia is not merely an exciting new undertaking, but a homecoming. Tim served with energy and distinction as an Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Western District from 2003 to 2006, where he solidified his reputation as one of the country's most skilled young criminal prosecutors. Those of us who live in this area and have lived here for a while remember all too well the horrifying murder of two James Madison University students in 1995. Tim was one of two prosecutors from the Western District who obtained a federal conviction and life sentence in the case after a state plea bargain had resulted in a modest sentence. It is a special source of pride when one of our graduates answers the call to public service, as Tim has now done several times. Indeed, we are doubly proud that the law school produced both of the current U.S. attorneys in the Commonwealth. Shortly before Thanksgiving, Neal Mcbride, who graduated from the law school the year after Tim, was sworn in as U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, and Neal has thoughtfully joined us today to celebrate Tim's installation. Tim has asked Professor and Academic Associate Dean Liz McGill to introduce our principal speakers. Liz is a 1995 graduate of the law school, a former senior legislative aide to Senator Kent Conrad, and an outstanding scholar, teacher, and leader. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you, Liz, for acting as Master of Ceremonies.
Thanks, Paul, and let me echo Dean Mahoney's welcome to all of you today. It's a thrill to have this event at the law school. The Reverend Neal Halverson Taylor will start us out today. Neal is a pastor at St. Paul's Memorial Church here in Charlottesville and a good friend of the Heaphy family. He'll lead us in the convocation.
Please rise. And let us pray. Holy and gracious God, long ago, through the prophet Isaiah, you commissioned your people, saying, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon you. I am sending you to bring good news to the oppressed, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and release to the prisoners." And through the prophet Amos you commanded, "Let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream." On this day, we give you thanks for gathering us together and renewing your mission among us, O God. We gather as people who thirst for the waters of your rolling justice and who long for your ever-flowing righteousness. We gather with grateful and expectant hearts as Tim assumes the office of United States Attorney for the Western District of Virginia. We trust that you have called Tim to this office, that with your Spirit upon him and under your guidance, he might help those who have been wronged, that he might protect the vulnerable, restore the dignity of victims and perpetrators alike, that he might work to liberate the oppressed, those caught in the web of poverty, violence, and crime. We trust that Tim will be an instrument of your justice. Bless him, O Lord, with wisdom and courage and compassion in its pursuit. We ask also that you bless those who have shaped Tim and have inspired his unwavering commitment to this vocation. We ask your special blessing on Lori and Joe and Jack and Maggie, all the faculty here at the law school, and the Heaphy family and extended family and their friends. On this day and the days ahead, strengthen all who work for justice, all who strive for righteousness. Attorney General Eric Holder, Department of Justice, colleagues and staff, and especially your servant Tim. O ineffable God, bless and spur us on with your creative, redemptive, and sanctifying presence. Amen. You may be seated.
The Chief Judge of the Western District, Judge Jones, will soon administer the oath of office, but first we're going to hear from two speakers. They actually have several things in common. They are both generals, they are both distinguished public servants, and they are both connected to Tim Heaphy. Let me start with retired U.S. Army General Eric Shinseki. He, as you know, is the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, having been appointed to that position by President Obama and confirmed by the Senate earlier this year. General Shinseki's leadership of the VA is a second career for him. He graduated from West Point in 1965, and after his graduation, he spent the better part of 4 decades serving our nation in the armed forces. He served 2 tours of duty in Vietnam and was wounded in action in both tours. He was obviously recognized early on as a leader. He had a meteoric rise in the military. He's commanded forces all over this country and all over the world, including the 1st Cavalry Division in Fort Hood, Texas, the NATO Land Forces, and the NATO Stabilization Force in Bosnia-Herzegovina. He, in fact, rose to the very top position in the Army, serving as the Army's Chief of Staff between 1999 and 2003. That, as you no doubt know, was a challenging period. It coincided with the initiation of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it was marked by General Shinseki's own initiatives to modernize the Army. General Shinseki has been awarded countless military awards through the course of his military career, including the Bronze Star for Valor with 2 oak leaf clusters. For many, General Shinseki's career as a military officer sets the standard for both service and personal and moral courage. And he continues to set the standard. In what the New York Times called his honorable second act, General Shinseki has chosen to lead the VA. It's hard to imagine a better leader of the Veterans Affairs. He's taken a special interest in both the physical as well as the mental trauma that has been experienced by our newest generation of veterans, and all have praised him for his energy and compassion that he brings to bear on behalf of those veterans. It may be, though, that General Shinseki's most important qualification today is personal. He is Tim Heaphy's father-in-law. He is Lori Shinseki's father, and I am told on good authority that he is a both gracious and doting grandfather. General Shinseki, let me say to you that it's a rare privilege for those of us in law to be in the presence of a genuine American hero, and we're humbled to have that experience today.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very, very kind and very generous of you. Listen, I didn't realize there were going to be this many people here. You usually get the father-in-law's invitation. Rick, why don't you just get up and say a few words off the cuff? And I said, sure. And then I walked in the room and you all were here. My name's Rick Shinseki. I'm a soldier, and I'm privileged to be serving at Veterans Affairs right now, fellow cabinet official with Attorney General Holder. Great privilege to be able to work with him. I would just tell you, Tim, I thought, was going to ask me to give the usual remarks of a father-in-law, and I said, Tim, what would you like me to talk about? And he said, service. Public service, why you chose to do it. And it's one of those things, I just never thought about. You just do and end up doing. So I had to think a little bit. I'm a kid who was born in the first half of the last century. That puts a date here, about a year after Pearl Harbor. Hawaii was under martial law at the time. Hawaii was also part of the Naval Theater of Operations, World War II, so I grew up in that environment. I didn't plan on making a career out of the military, but I ended up falling in love with the service, with the American soldier. And time went by. 38 years later, I was saying goodbye. I don't come from a military family. In fact, most of folks in my family served during World War II for a very brief period. Some of them served in my community, the Japanese-American community out in Hawaii, and some of the legendary units. They're called the 100th Infantry Battalion, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, and the Military Intelligence Service. They're little known to anyone outside the community. But in our community, they were giants because these were men who volunteered to go to serve during World War II when there was great suspicion in the country. And because of them, youngsters like myself had an opportunity to find public service and to serve in a military which at the time denied them the opportunity to bear arms. I've grown up with this sense of obligation of giving back to those great men that I grew up around. And as I said, after the early service, it was very easy to fall in love with the American soldier. And my service at this point is the opportunity to give back to those great men I talked about that helped raise me, on whose shoulders I stood. The folks I went to war with 40 years ago, and the youngsters I sent off on campaigns here as a service chief. And so my response to Tim, why does one do this? It's this wonderful opportunity to give back that I would not have any other way. And this opportunity to serve, much as Tim is about to take on the responsibilities for, is something that I am privileged to do in this wonderful country of ours. Those of us who serve in uniform have an opportunity to walk in those places that are the alternatives to our way of life. We get to see lots of other places in the world. And the young people we raise have a great civics lesson all by itself on what makes this country what it is. And so the service goes on. I would just tell you that the young people that I served with for 38 years, in many ways helped raise, are part of some very high-performing organizations, as you all know. They're very disciplined. They're proud. They do things for all of us that we can only imagine what they're asked to do. And this current responsibility, when they come home, I will also tell you that veterans, for some unfortunate reason, lead the country in homelessness, mental health problems, depression, substance abuse, and suicides. And so the service in this second calling is to figure out why that is and ensure that the youngsters who give of their time and energy to serve in those high-performing organizations come back and have a better outcome than they currently have. And so it's a great opportunity, great privilege for me to try to do that. And that's what occupies my time. And although Tim and I won't be able to have any conversations because we are rightfully embargoed from having any discussions about these things, veterans courts are important, and maybe I'll get some pointers from him. Thank you all very much.
So this is a room full of people connected to law. The next general, the one who is our nation's chief law enforcement officer, in some ways needs no introduction. Many of us in this room know Attorney General Holder's distinguished career by heart. He was sworn in as the 82nd Attorney General of the United States in February of this year. Before leading that department, he served in it in a variety of capacities. He had been the Deputy Attorney General, he had been the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, and also, at the beginning of his career, a line attorney in the Public Integrity Section of the Justice Department. Prior to his appointment as Attorney General, he also served as a partner in private practice and as an appointed judge in the District of Columbia. Attorney General Holder has two connections to Tim Heaphy. The first and most important one appears on the organizational chart, and it's a pretty simple one. He's his boss. The Attorney General wears many hats. He's on the front line of many of the toughest issues we have to deal with today in this country, but one important one is directing the work of the 94 United States attorneys across the country. The other connection he has to Tim Heaphy, though, is more personal. Attorney General Holder, when he was United States Attorney Holder in the District of Columbia, gave Tim Heaphy his start as a prosecutor when he hired Tim as an AUSA in 1994. General Holder selected Tim to be part of a pilot project, in fact, not just hired him, but selected him as a part of a pilot project on community prosecution. Under this project, AUSAs were assigned to individual neighborhoods in the district, and they prosecuted everything from local misdemeanors to federal felonies. I have no doubt that the experience of working for U.S. Attorney Holder inspired Tim to continue his career in public service and will play an important role in Tim's own thinking about the office of United States Attorney. Attorney General Holder, we are a law school. We spend our time teaching students the law. It's a thrill and honor to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all very much, but I want to clear one thing up. There's only one real general here, okay? This Attorney General thing does not compare to this man's service as a general. Chief Judge Jones, members of the court, General Shinseki, Dean Mahoney, Dean McGill, Reverend Halverson Taylor, distinguished guests, friends, United States Attorney's Office staff, family members. It's a real pleasure for me to be here this afternoon to participate in the investiture of my good friend, Tim Heaphy. When Tim was going through the selection process for this job, I talked one day to the White House counsel who had not yet met with Tim. He described a call he had received from one of the senators who was involved in the process. The senator had said that Tim has the background, the experience, the energy, and the temperament to be a strong United States attorney with an added bonus. He looks like he came straight out of central casting. Now, without commenting on his looks, and he's a good-looking guy, but this is a great day for the Western District of Virginia and for the United States Department of Justice. I am very confident that Tim will fulfill his responsibilities as United States Attorney for this district with characteristic success and will be a leader in the United States Attorney community. Now, as many of you know, Tim has devoted a significant portion of his professional life to public service as an assistant United States attorney, both in the District of Columbia, where I hired him, as you heard, and also here in Virginia. For me, one of the best parts of returning to the Department of Justice is having the opportunity to work again with dedicated men and women like Tim, some of whom left the department for a while, but who always remained public servants at heart, and who never stopped thinking of themselves as being a part of the Department of Justice family. I know this United States attorney, and remember well being ready to make him an offer on the spot when I interviewed him for a position as an assistant United States attorney in the District of Columbia in 1993. And I mean that. I remember him sitting on the couch and interviewing him and thinking, all right, we're going to hire this guy. But you can't do that. I had to make like I had to go through a process and talk to the hiring committee, but, you had the job. Didn't want his head to get too big too soon. I watched him develop and flourish as a prosecutor as he rotated through the various sections of our office. And by the time he left, he was a go-to guy in the gang prosecution section, where he investigated and prosecuted some of the most violent and notorious criminals in the District of Columbia. I stayed in touch with Tim when he transferred to this district and was not at all surprised that his superior litigation skills and judgment were recognized, and he was selected to serve as Deputy Managing Assistant United States Attorney. His past 3.5 years handling complex white-collar matters have made Tim an even more rounded attorney, and I believe will enhance his perspective as he tackles his new position. Tim is a natural leader, and I have no doubt that he will fulfill his new responsibilities in precisely the same manner as he has handled his prior responsibilities, with confidence, with intelligence, with diligence, and most of all, with integrity. Under Tim's leadership, the attorneys, paralegals, secretaries, and administrative staff of this office will continue to rise, I believe, to the many challenges confronting this district and also our nation. In the coming months and years, I will repeatedly call upon Tim and the other extraordinarily talented people in this office as we strive to keep the citizens of the Western District of Virginia safe, as we endeavor to reinvigorate our traditional law enforcement missions, and as we seek to ensure that in a fair and an impartial way, ensure that justice is always done. And I know that I will be able to rely upon the men and women of this office in that regard. So, Tim, thank you for once again answering the call to service. I look forward to working with you and your office over the next several years, and I'm very pleased and proud to be able to refer to you today not only as my colleague once again, but also as United States Attorney Heaphy. Congratulations.
We are now to the main event. Judge Jones, the Chief Judge of the Western District of Virginia, will shortly administer the oath of office to Tim Heaphy. Judge Jones, it's a pleasure to have you here today, and so many judges of the Western District of Virginia. Let me talk to you a little bit about Judge Jones before he administers the oath of office. The first and proudest thing we often say about Judge Jones is that he's a graduate of this law school. Like our speakers, he served in public service capacities throughout his career. Before he joined the bench, he'd maintained a law practice first in Bristol and then in Abingdon, Virginia, but he also pursued many public service opportunities. He served in the state Senate in Virginia for 5 years, and he led the State Board of Higher Education when the Board of Education adopted its revised standards of learning, which those of you in the education field know is a quite landmark piece of education reform. President Clinton appointed Judge Jones to the bench in 1996, where he has served with distinction. Lawyers report that he is unfailing in his graciousness and composure and good sense on the bench. He became the Chief Judge of that court in 2004. Thanks, Judge Jones.
Attorney General Holder and General Shinseki, it's an honor for the members of this court to be with you today. And Dean Mahoney and Dean McGill, we thank you very much for the use of this wonderful room and the facilities here at the law school. I want to briefly recognize the other members of our court who are here. Nearly all of the judges of our court are here. There are only two missing who could not be here with us today. Our district judges are Judge Wilson, Judge Moon, Judge Conrad, and Judge Turk, and Judge Kaiser. Our magistrate judges who are here are Judge Sargent, Judge Urbanski, and Judge Welsh. I think the presence of virtually all of the members of our court is an indication of the esteem to which the new United States Attorney is held, even though he has not progressed very far in his job. The proper administration of justice, in my view, demands a United States Attorney with judgment, experience, and a recognition that the rule of law is the bedrock of our democracy. Tim Heaphy possesses these qualities and has the potential, in our view, to be an outstanding United States Attorney. We welcome him to our court family. While as judges we cannot promise that we will always agree with his legal positions, we will always respect him and the position that he holds, and we know that he will respect the bench as he has in the past. It's therefore an honor for me, as a representative of the court, to administer the oath of office to Tim Heaphy. Tim, if you'd come forward, please. We want everybody to see you. That's the important thing. Why don't I stand like this? You'll repeat after me. I, Timothy John Heaphy.
I, Timothy John Heaphy.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation.
Without any mental reservation.
Or purpose of evasion.
Or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully.
That I will well and faithfully.
Discharge the duties.
Discharge the duties.
Of the office on which I am about to enter.
Of the office on which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Wow. Judge Jones, thank you so much for doing that again. Judge Jones and I have reenacted that oath now twice. As soon as I was informed back in the middle of October that the Senate had voted to confirm my nomination and the President had signed whatever document he needed to sign, I think I got in my car immediately and headed for Abingdon, Virginia, because I was so excited to get started. As U.S. Attorney, Judge Jones entertained me and Julie Dudley, our principal assistant, in his chambers very early on a Friday morning. and swore me in. So we've done this before. That's why it went so flawlessly, right? Because we've done it before. So, Chief Judge Jones, I really appreciate your willingness to do it again. All of the judges of this court, I really appreciate you all traveling from far and near to be here. You're all seated up front for a reason, because you are sort of the embodiment of fairness and justice in our district. I so appreciate the consistent and even-handed way in which you administer justice, and I really appreciate all of you being here today. I also want to start by thanking the law school and the university broadly. This place has meant a lot to me over the years. I was here as an undergraduate student, I was here as a law student, and it had a profound impact on me. So doing this here in this building is particularly special to me. I've come a long way since law school. One of my very early memories of law school was my trial advocacy class. I was one of those law students that wanted to try cases. I knew I was headed for a courtroom, and I wanted to take advantage of whatever the law school had to offer in terms of trial experience. So I signed up for trial advocacy, and I took the criminal section of trial advocacy because I wanted to be a criminal lawyer. And I was assigned the defense position in our final trial. I was representing a man named Freddie Johnson, who was charged with distributing cocaine. And I prepared with my partner for the final trial. I had my witnesses prepared, I had my exhibits together, and I was assigned to give the opening statement. And I stood up in the moot courtroom. There was a jury of undergraduate students there. My very first courtroom experience, I was very excited. And I stood up and I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, my client, Freddie Cocaine, is not guilty of this offense." Yeah. So I got through the rest of the trial somehow, and we got to the end, and the professor said, "Mr. Heaphy, you did an outstanding job. You had a theme of your case. You were prepared. Really compliment your performance overall, but you stumbled a bit out of the gate. Don't forget the name of your client, and if you do forget, really don't inject an element of the offense into his name." So I've come a long way since law school. I will try not to mispronounce anyone's name, get anybody wrong today. I have a lot of people to thank, and I run the risk when you do this of forgetting someone. So let me just say as a blanket statement to the room, you're all here for a reason. You're all invited for a reason. You're either someone who's been important to me in the past, who has had, through your friendship or your example, an impact on me, or you're somebody with whom I will work in the future. So you're either an old friend or a new friend. You're all friends, and I really appreciate everyone's presence. Okay, so with that, I want to now go on to say a few things about some individual people that are here. I got to start with my family, where it all starts for everybody with their family. My mom is here from California. Mom, thank you for coming. My sister Karen is here as well. And my mom instilled in me an ethic of giving to others from a very young age. I was raised that the measure of a person is in the impact he has on other people. I remember very distinctly one particular rainy Sunday afternoon when my mom and my sister and I were in a car coming back to our house. And as we drove into our neighborhood, there was a boy standing at a street corner kind of by himself. And my mom said, "Who's that?" And I think I said, "That's Billy Moeller. Billy's this kid that lives down the street that doesn't really have any friends and nobody really likes him. Everybody makes fun of him." So she dropped us off at home and she went back out. And 5 minutes later, she showed up with Billy Moeller. And Billy Moeller had dinner with us. And I remember when we got over our initial, like, "Mom, what are you doing bringing Billy Moeller into our house?" She explained to us after she took him home that he had nowhere else to go. This is a kid that his family situation was very different from ours. So that's how I grew up, right? My mom looked after the Billy Moellers of the world, and she continues to do that. She works at a center for homeless men and women in California. So, Mom, thank you for that example. It is part of me, and I really appreciate it. My father, who's passed away a few years ago, was involved in law enforcement. If he were here, he would be with the agents somewhere in the back. He was in the New Haven Police Department, the New York City Police Department, and that instilled in me the belief that public service really can be done through law enforcement. I then married into a family in which public service was taken to a higher level. I didn't grow up in a military family, much like my father-in-law. I wasn't exposed to it as a kid, but man, have I been exposed to it since. And I so respect it now, the service of soldiers, the men and women who fight for this country. And I'm a public servant of sorts, but I never had to put my life on the line in the course of my public service. So I have seen Rick and Patty over the years sacrifice so much for our country. Lori went to 3 different high schools as her father's career continued to progress, so the whole family has really sacrificed. And I respect that so much. I particularly appreciate, Rick, your willingness to come today and to share with us your thoughts on public service. I asked General Shinseki to come when I heard a little snippet on an interview that you gave talking about your second act and the fact that this was an easy opportunity for you, a wonderful opportunity to serve, because like you said earlier today, that's just what we do. So I respect that service and I really appreciate it. And then finally, with respect to family, every trial lawyer is told that you don't bury your lead. You start with your strongest point or you finish with your strongest point. This is my strongest point and the most significant thank you I have to give, but I'm sort of doing it in the middle, contrary to that. See, I wasn't a good trial advocacy student, as you've heard. But my own family, Lori and Joe and Jack and Maggie, there's no possible way that I would be standing here were it not for your sacrifice. There have been so many nights when I either wasn't there, or I was there but not mentally there, or I turned my computer on when the kids went to bed. And I can't take that back, but I can just say in front of all these people that I recognize the sacrifice, and I so appreciate it. So Lori and my kids, thank you so much for enabling me to serve. Most recently, when I brought this up with Lori, when the election happened and I was sort of interested in this job, I said, what do you think? And she said, does it come with a pay cut? And I said, as a matter of fact, it does. She said, how much of a pay cut? I said, a substantial pay cut. And she said, do it. Doesn't matter. Absolutely. We'll make do. And of course, we have and we will. So, Lori, again, for everything, for your sacrifice, thank you. There's so many people around the room that are my friends, and I've got such good friends. All of the folks from D.C. who are here, Rachel and Ben, and Ted and Deborah, and Steve and Kelly, all of you through the years have listened to me go on and on about what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. I appreciate that. There's a group of folks in Charlottesville, Andy Block and Jim Ryan and Bill Antholis. For the last year, they've indulged me in conversation after conversation over a run or over a meal, stress about the process and where it stood and whether it was going to happen. All of you listened to me and supported me, and you're all a big part of this. There are a couple of friends that have been friends for a long time, but are sort of, the relationships are newly invigorated. One is Neal Mcbride, who's my partner now across the state in the Eastern District. Neal and I were roommates at this law school years ago, and it's weird to everybody else who is part of our law school circle of friends that we're doing this. It's still sort of strange to us. Attorney General's wiping his brow as I said that. Neal, I'm thrilled to be walking this path with you. The fact that I've been able to share the whole experience through confirmation with you has really made it a lot easier. And Monty Wilkinson, who's here in the back, who's one of the Attorney General's people, is a friend. We were law clerks together, and he now, being in the department, is a colleague again. And Monty's been a tremendous help to me more recently as well. So Monty, thank you. I am at sort of at bottom a line guy. I'm a line prosecutor who gets to be the U.S. attorney, and that's really unusual. But it's really a privilege for me as a line person to get a chance to be the U.S. attorney. And I bring to this position so many relationships with line people over the years. And I look around the room and I see Michael Britton and Adam Rossman and Rachel Lieber and all these people with whom I tried cases, and the experience that I gained with all of you, your ethic, your diligence, your intelligence, it has made a huge impact on me. There are two of those people in particular who are here who I got to especially recognize. That's Matt Olson and Amy Jeffress. Matt and Amy and I tried together a case that I think is actually referenced in the bio in your program. It was a 13-month-long criminal trial of a violent drug gang where we charged 31 murders. It was a death penalty case. It was, frankly, the most significant criminal prosecution in the history of man, in my view. I've said that for many years. It's true. I had two partners in that case. Okay, that's a recipe. We were together every day for years. We were in court for 13 months. But the investigation and the aftermath was longer than that. That's a recipe for paradise or disaster. Thankfully for me, it was paradise, because those two people, Matt and Amy, how many times, Lori, did you hear Matt and Amy? Many times. Were the best partners and the best friends I could ever have. Your work ethic, your intelligence, your diligence, I carry with me and has been an example to me. They both now advise the Attorney General. I'm not surprised that significant national security decisions are in their capable hands, in the Attorney General's capable hands, but advised by Matt and Amy. So I'm thrilled to be your partner of sorts again. I'm looking forward to the next chapter of our partnership. Agents and officers, anybody who's been a prosecutor knows that the people that make you look the best or not so good are agents, right? You all bring us the raw material to do our jobs. And Gus Yanakoulias and Dan Sparks and Michael Talbert and John Stoltz in the back. You people over the years have shaped me, and your diligence and your service and your ethic has been consistently impressive to me. And all of the new agents with whom I haven't yet worked who are here, I so value your service, and I so appreciate all the work that you do. And I know that in 4 years from now, if I step down from this job, that the measure of my tenure will be largely a function of the work that you do, the evidence that you bring, the cases that you bring. So all of the agents with whom I've worked, I so appreciate it. Thank you so much for your service, and thank you so much for being here today. There are three people in particular who I wanted to say a word about on the list of thank yous, and they're all examples to me. And they each embody something special, which I hope that I can then turn around as a leader of this office and instill in my people. The first is our Attorney General, Eric Holder. When Eric Holder hired me as an assistant U.S. attorney, I think he hired me in 1993, and my first day was April 16th of 1994. Not that it's a fond memory, but I remember the exact day. And Eric Holder swore me in, gave me that same oath that Chief Judge Jones just gave me. And then he sat me down on his couch. He had this sort of fake leather government-issue couch in his office. And he said, I'm not going to give you a lot of rules. I'm not going to give you a lot of specific guidance. But I'll tell you one thing that you always have to remember. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. And I kind of looked at him, how will I know what that is? Maybe quizzically, like, what do you mean? And he went on, and he said, look, you're going to have awesome discretion in this job. The decisions that you make will have a direct impact on people's lives. At all times, as you exercise that awesome discretion, be guided by what is in your heart and in your gut as what's right. And I've always remembered that, and there were dozens of times as an assistant U.S. attorney in which I remembered that. When I dismissed a case because something felt funny and I disappointed an officer or a victim. Or we went forward on something that folks probably argued that we shouldn't. But I felt like it was right, and I remembered again and again that advice. I frankly think that the Attorney General continues to live by that rule. He's made decisions as Attorney General that haven't been popular. I don't think I'm going out on a limb to say that. I'm not. He's not doing this, making any decision for any other reason than that it's right. That in his gut, in his view of the facts and the law, it's right. I continue to respect the way you exercise your important responsibility, and I hope that I can mirror that in my time as U.S. Attorney. The next example that I want to talk about is Richard Cohen, who's sitting right in the back in the middle, who's the chairman of the McGuire Woods Law Firm. My story about Richard also involves my first day when I worked for him. Much like General Holder, the first day I worked for Richard Cohen, I got an example of why he's so special. That day was a day on which Jack Abramoff pleaded guilty. Jack Abramoff, for those of you non-lawyers, was a lobbyist who pled guilty to bribing members of Congress. And his lawyer called Richard to say, Mr. Abramoff's pleading guilty. And Richard, at the time, represented Congressman DeLay. And Richard then brought me into his office and said, we got to call Tom, Congressman DeLay, and fill him in on the Abramoff plea. So he brought me into his office, and on the speakerphone, we called Congressman DeLay. And Richard started the conversation by saying, I want you to meet over the phone my new partner, Tim Heaphy. And he called me his partner, which really mattered to me. And we had a very brief conversation with Congressman DeLay in which we conveyed the Abramoff plea. And then not 5 minutes later, after that conversation was over, a woman came in to empty Richard's trash can. And he had a 5-minute conversation with her. about her weekend, about her family, and he treated Congressman DeLay and the woman that emptied his trash exactly the same. And Richard treats everybody like that, with dignity, with respect, with even-handed fairness. And that example has made a huge impact on me. Not only is he a great lawyer with great judgment, but he does it with a personal touch and a personally magnanimous style that I hope that we can in this district also follow. So Richard, thank you for your example. Thank you for being here today. And then the last example that I want to talk about is less famous than either General Holder or Richard Cullen, but his name's Cliff Keenan. And Cliff Keenan, for those of you in the D.C. office, will know is a veteran line prosecutor. He was actually a police sergeant in Washington, D.C. He went to law school at night, and he became a prosecutor. And Cliff was my boss in that community prosecution section when I worked for Eric Holder. And there were days back then when I was so fired up, when I would come back from court and I'd be like, Cliff, you wouldn't believe what this judge did or what this defense lawyer did. And you're not going to believe it. I was so angry. And Cliff would sit back in his chair and he'd say, Timmy, it's just a J-O-B, man. It's just a J-O-B. Relax. I may need to call you periodically to get that. But that's not even why Cliff's such an example to me. I then took a trip with Cliff to Chicago for a community policing conference. And Cliff brought his whole family. Cliff has 8 kids. And he drove them in a van to Chicago. Right? This is a true story. And over the course of that week, there were some social things with the conference, and Cliff brought his kids to everything. And the way in which Cliff's family interacted with each other and with him and his wife made a huge impact on me, because they liked each other, they cared about each other, they hung close together, not out of obligation, but out of desire. And Cliff, every day, would go home at 5 o'clock to his family. He was available, but he went home. And the way he was able to balance his work, his important responsibilities as a prosecutor with his family, it was an inspiration to me. And it's something that I'm not sure I've been very good at, but I'm going to try my best to be better at and instill in our people that they should be good at that too. So Cliff, for that example, thank you. Now, let me just talk just a little bit before I stop about looking forward, about vision, or about what we're going to be as an office going forward. We have a very vast and diverse district. The Western District of Virginia has urban problems like crime and drugs and violence, and it has vast rural space where there's environmental crime and public corruption and prescription drug abuse. So we have a small staff to tackle a broad range of criminal justice challenges. How are we going to do that? First and foremost, we're going to focus on communities. We're going to listen to communities identify for us what their problems are. We have to have a good relationship with state and local prosecutors. We have to listen to them identify problems in their communities. And when we listen, we then need to react. Right? We need to react in 2 ways. We need to react on the front end and the back end of those problems. The back end is the easy and traditional one. If there's a big gang problem in the city of Roanoke, we need to put together a case that addresses that problem. Large, impactful prosecutions that remove people that are committing those kinds of persistent patterns of crime from our communities. But we also need to focus on the front end, on prevention, on treatment, on diversion. I want to hire a person to be a community outreach coordinator, to do nothing but look for organizations in those communities doing positive community building, empowering kinds of activities, and try to find ways to help the Department of Justice bring money and resources and information to those people. And attack the gang problem in Roanoke, not just by arresting people, but by trying to prevent young people from being sucked into that lure of gang life. Right? So we're going to tackle problems on the front end and the back end. And ideally, after 4 years or 8 years or whatever it is, we can point to some communities that are frankly in a better place than they were when we got here. Right? Because it is ultimately all about how people live day to day. And we need to listen to people, tell us what their problems are, and to the extent we can, try to fix those problems. Now, I want to close by turning my attention really explicitly to the people with whom I work in the Western District. My partners in this effort. What I just articulated here, this community focus, is an ambitious goal. There's no question. I acknowledge saying it. Changing communities, that's a huge optimistic goal. But I'm absolutely confident that we can do it together. Right? We have the capacity to change people's lives. Right? I have been trying to meet with every single person in the district. I have a small enough office that I can literally sit down with everybody from the receptionist who answers the phone to the most senior lawyer. And as I listen to all of you in these conversations, I so respect your work ethic. I so respect your commitment to justice. I respect your capacity. And I'm confident, standing in front of all these people, making the prediction that we're going to change communities. I want to thank Julie Dudley, my predecessor. Julie was the acting U.S. attorney for about 18 months, and she did an incredible job as acting U.S. attorney. She graciously has agreed to stay on as my principal assistant. She is my right-hand person. And Julie, I'm so thankful that you've agreed to stay and help me achieve those ambitious goals. I also want to thank Steve Flager, our new criminal chief. I want to thank Mike Vaughn, our administrative supervisor, Tony Giorno, Randy Ramsire, and Don Waltice, our supervisory team. These are people that have already demonstrated that they can say no to me. Right? They can say, interesting idea, but no, you can't do that. And I need that, right? General Shinseki, don't you need people that are going to say no? Absolutely. I appreciate the honesty that I've gotten from the supervisory team. Right? We can do great things with the people that we have in this district. And I am so excited to be walking that path with you. Though people in my district, I want to invite you, as you leave today, to turn around outside of the front door and look at the inscription that's right above the door to the law school. Okay, there's a quote that's engraved up there. It says that those alone may be servants of the law who labor with learning, courage, and devotion to preserve liberty and promote justice. That's on the door of the law school when you walk in. It was on the door of the old building before they built this beautiful place. It's on Clark Hall, which is the old law school on Central Grounds. I used to look at that quote, and I got a little fired up when I saw that, when I was in law school, right? Because it sort of says what we can be, what we should be, right? We are servants of the law. Prosecutors have no client, no individual client. The client is the law. The client is the cause of justice, right? That's a noble calling. It's labor, right? It's hard work, what we do. It takes a lot of effort. We labor with courage, with learning, with devotion to that fidelity, that principle of law, right? We preserve liberty. My defense lawyer friends that are here, Barry Coburn or David Brook or Andy Block, may say it's ironic that a prosecutor is saying that they preserve liberty and they're putting people in jail. But we do, in a real sense, preserve liberty, because the work that we do ensures that people can live in safety, in freedom. That the woman in Roanoke who lives in a neighborhood where there's open-air drug activity and violence can sit on her front porch and enjoy a summer evening, right? The work that we do preserves that liberty. And we promote justice. That's what this is all about. That ideal is why I'm here. That's why we are all here. We're privileged to have that opportunity. So I so look forward with the folks in the Western District to walking that path, to promoting justice, to doing the right thing, to doing it with respect for people and fairness and even hand, and not neglecting our families. That's what I aspire to as your U.S. Attorney. So thank you all very much for coming. Very much.
There's one more order of business that is going to be extremely brief. Let me call on Susan Payne.
Good afternoon. Tim, would you come join me? I know. I am the humble part of today's program. All of you impressive people from around the state, we want you to know that actually Tim is from Charlottesville, and he is the Charlottesville community. And one distinction that Tim had is he served on the Charlottesville Police Department Foundation. And when he was honored to be the U.S. Attorney, he had to step down from being on the Charlottesville Police Department Foundation. And his service on that foundation was to provide a measure of excellence to make the police department one of the best in the country. And he worked to provide training and worked to provide lecture programs, and he also worked to provide affordable housing for police officers and work on issues. So he rolled his sleeves up and worked with us. And today his friends from Charlottesville and his friends that worked with him want to honor Tim today by providing an endowment for the lecture and training program for the Charlottesville Police Department Foundation, which will be at this law school.